All right. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Today we are talking with Emily. Emily, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing good. Just kind of jump right on in. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I um I am originally from Northern Virginia, so I'm a Roanoke area transplant. I live in Roanoke with my spouse and two children. By day, I work as a social worker, and on the weekends and in the evenings, I nerd out with comics.
That's awesome. How did you get
Yeah.
interested in comics and things of that nature?
Yeah, it's a funny story actually. So, I mean, I grew up in the 90s, 90s Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and that kind of thing. And like they had X-Men, and I was a huge Power Rangers fan, but I never was really into the comic thing until I got married. And my spouse is a huge, like X-Men, Avengers. Like I didn't even know they were Marvel movies before I got married. So ever since then, I've just kind of learned a lot and um, just kind of got pretty hooked pretty quickly. We started going to Comic Cons, and I learned what Funko Pop was, and I have a huge collection of that now. And now we go to Comic Cons and get comic books graded. Like I didn't even know that was a thing before. It's just kind of progressed ever since we got married, and our fifth anniversary is coming up in May.
Oh, well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So, out of all the comics that you can get, and of course, for people who don't know, there's a wide range. What would
Hmm.
you say your favorite is, if you have a favorite or favorites?
Like my favorite series,
Yeah.
or like my favorite kind of thing to hunt for.
Both.
Okay. Well, currently I'm reading the Strange Academy series, which is really interesting. It's like if Doctor Strange had a school essentially, so it gives me kind of like Harry Potter vibes almost, except it's Marvel and Doctor Strange, so it's not magic in the way that Harry Potter is, but I like that. I really like a lot of Scotty Young stuff. He's an artist and a writer that's pretty popular. He actually is a part of the Strange Academy, but he wrote a series that is hilarious called I Hate Fairyland, or yeah, that he uses some other more vulgar terms that I probably shouldn't say here, but that series is so funny about kind of like this
I
little
think I
girl
may
that
have
goes
lost
into
you.
this.
Oh, there you are.
Okay. Anyway, it's about a girl that goes into. She starts as a little girl and she's supposed to go through this quest through this fantasy land, and she ends up not being able to complete it and just stays there forever and ever. But every day she's trying to get out of this land. It's just hilarious. Um, but I like to hunt for some of the older stuff. It's really cool when you find a comic that's from like the 60s or 70s and it was 12 cents and now it's worth like $500 or more. It's really kind of cool, and it's interesting to see what people did to take care of those old comics and keep them in a certain condition for that long.
Yeah, yeah, and being a kid and trying to keep those pristine, it's got to be a difficult thing, especially when you find them in great condition. You definitely want to try to keep them
Yeah,
that way.
I don't know how kids like. I imagine they're just like their prized possession, and so they take really good care of them. Yeah.
So when it comes down to graded, I know 10 is one of the highest, but I don't know, exactly what they would consider like a mid grade. Would that be something like a 5 or a
Hmm.
6?
Yeah, I'd say so. So I'm pretty new to the graded stuff. And the grading system is still kind of something that eludes me a little bit, only because you'd think the higher the grade, the more money it would be worth, right? Which is true most of the time. But for those older comics, like I was talking about, sometimes they can be super low grade. Like I've seen point 0.5, I've seen two's point 0.5s, but they're still worth a lot of money because they're so old. Um, but yeah, from what I've actually never seen a 10 graded slab. The highest I've seen is 9.8, but I'm sure it exists out there somewhere. They wouldn't have that number. But basically, it's
Right.
just to preserve the comic in the condition that it's in. So if something's already at a 2, it probably needs to be in a plastic case anyway.
Exactly. Yeah. Years ago, I was what got me hooked into the Funkos and into starting to collect. I don't have a huge collection, but I have some.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a lot of the some of. I don't know how old they would be. I guess in mid '90s, like Spider-Man action figures and whatnot. But
Mm-hmm.
there was a company on Instagram that did comic book mystery boxes, and I ended up with 4 or 5 of them. So I'm interested at some
Yeah.
point to try to figure out what I've got. I know I've got some old stuff, but I don't know anything about them.
And mystery boxes are so awesome. I've gotten a couple of those. I usually, if I'm buying kind of random stuff, I use Whatnot, which is gaining some popularity, especially with people who are buying comics. It's a live auction, but it's through this app. But if I'm shopping, if I want to go to my local comics shop, I'm hitting Big Lit Comics or Collector's Lair, or Star City Games is probably the three I frequent most. But I'll hit up B&D Comics every now and again too. Um, they have an impressive system. I don't know how they keep track of all their comics, but yeah. So be careful with the mystery boxes because they get addicting when you get something really good.
Yeah, my wife had to threaten me to stop just because I was buying one box every week for a while there.
Yeah, because you get some cool stuff, and you can get a mix of, certain comics come with variant covers, and some of the variants are done by different artists, and you find the ones you like, and they're almost like art sometimes. You just want to display them.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got some of the. My big thing is Funko Pop, so I've got probably
Hmm.
close to 200, and I've only got a handful of them displayed. But I've got them all out of mystery boxes for the most part, and
Oh,
the thing
really?
with me with mystery boxes is you don't know what you're going to get, so it's kind of like it's an adrenaline rush once you open it up,
Yep.
and then you try to figure out what you've
Yep.
got.
Exactly. In Funko, they've started doing the sodas. I don't know if you've seen those where it comes in like a can and they come in actually cases, and one in every six is a chase. I love it. I love trying to find the Funko chase in
Yeah,
the
I,
soda.
I I got my wife a couple of those, and they were the back when they had the Flintstones ones out, and
Oh
she got
yeah,
lucky. She got two chases out of that.
really?
Yeah, so we were
Goodness,
two for
I don't
two
think I've
on
ever
that.
gotten two. That's awesome. That's another thing I've bought. Like in live auctions, they'll do soda breaks, and so you just buy one, and if you get lucky, you get the chase. If not, you don't. But I've gotten lucky a couple times.
Yeah,
But like
the
you, I
stuff.
had to stop.
Yeah, yeah, and the stuff that they do is just it's crazy. Have you heard of $7 a pop?
Mm-mm.
They're on Instagram. They have a YouTube channel too, and they do right now. They're in the middle of doing signed limited edition Funko Pops where
Oh wow.
you get certain variants, and I've got a couple of those, and it's the same as a mystery box. You pay a flat fee, and you might get one that's worth $200. You might get one that's worth if you pay 75, it might be worth 75,
Mhm. Mhm.
and they're all
Yeah,
signed. And I
that's
think they're
awesome.
even
I might have to look
uh,
that up.
yeah, definitely. I think they're JSA maybe certified.
Oh yeah. Is it JSA? JSA. Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
I've got a
I've
couple
got
signed
one.
ones. but
I've
not
got
a
one
ton.
sitting in my office. It's of a wrestler, Kurt Angle, and his is
Okay.
JSA certified, and of course it comes in the hard stack.
The classic. Yep. Yep. That's awesome. Most of my signed ones are by Power Rangers right now. So, I met David Yost and Austin St. John, who are the Blue Ranger and the Red Ranger. Got them to sign a couple of my pops, and then I ended up buying one that was signed by Amy Jo Johnson, which was the original Pink Ranger. So I'm on my way to a full Power Ranger signed pop collection, but got a couple
My
more to
business
hit.
partner, yeah, my business partner is a big Power Rangers fanatic too, and he's got I think he got Jason David Frank to sign one of the Green Ranger helmets he has displayed at his
Oh
place.
yeah,
And it's it's
that's awesome.
wild to see even after what's it been 20 years or so, maybe a little bit longer, that people still know who they are
Mm-hmm.
and that they're still making the rounds.
Yeah, yeah.
um,
Right, right. I think
so what
it's really cool.
what cons have you been to?
So mostly, I think we've been to every big like Comic Con here in Roanoke because they have a con twice a year, so once in February and once in August. And they're getting pretty big. I remember when there wasn't that many people going, and this last one they had in February was huge. I had never seen this many people at it. Um, Aside from that, we've been to Tidewater Comic Con, that was in Virginia Beach, and we have been to um, we went to Galaxy Con in Richmond. That was pretty cool. Uh, really, really big, lots of people. um, we've done a couple other like small, kind of local, just um, people, really more local people, just kind of getting together and sharing their comics and toy stuff. So those have been the biggest ones we've been to. Is Big Lick, and they have one coming up that's going to be in Nova. We're planning on going to, and in May we are actually going to try to go to. Oh, I just escaped my head. There's this huge one that's going to be in Orlando in May that we're going to try to go to. And apparently, we met some people in Richmond who told us it was like one of the biggest Comic Cons they'd ever seen.
Okay.
And I don't know why I can't think of the name.
That sounds
It's
like that
huge.
would be fun.
Oh, MegaCon. That's it. MegaCon is in
MegaCon.
Orlando in May. That's right.
Gotcha. Yeah, my
So we're looking forward to that.
my buddy's going to one in, it's either June or July, and I want to say it's in North Carolina, but I'm not 100% sure which one it is.
You still there?
And
Oh,
he
you're
said
breaking
he's
up a
pretty stoked
smidge.
for that. Um, so I've been curious about I've been asking people, like I noticed that Comic Con Scott follows you on Instagram. I've talked to him a few times. I'm curious, as far as when it comes down to superhero, like Marvel and DC stuff. Um, I'm always curious to find out what people think about the past movies with the Marvel universe, and then the DCEU, especially how they're evolving. With Zack Snyder behind the wheel. Are you with me? Uh-oh. I think we dropped out. Do do do. Technical difficulties. So sorry. See if we can get her back in. Oh, sorry about that.
I think I'm back. It kind of kicked me out after you got out, I think.
Yeah, for some reason, I somehow dropped the feed there. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're fine.
When it comes down to the DCEU and the MCU, how do you think they've evolved, and what do you think of the Snyderverse? I guess is what they're putting the terminology in.
Snyderverse, what's that? I haven't heard that term
So
yet.
that's with the DCEU where he's redone the Justice League, and he's I think he's slated to do a few more movies with them.
Okay.
Because he did the I guess not really the remake, but the re-edit of the Justice League.
Okay.
Where
Yeah, that's a new term for me. So I guess, I mean, like I said, I'm kind of new, and I didn't even know there was, like, superhero movies until I got married. Actually, I had seen one in the movie theater. Like, I went on a date, and that's the movie we saw, and I had no idea what was going on. I think I saw, like, one of the Avengers, maybe Age of Ultron. Anyways, from then, they have, usually if you start watching the Marvel movies to kind of go in order, what have you, when you end up getting to Infinity War and Endgame, you start with things like Iron Man, which is one of the few first ones. And now we're going into Doctor Strange with Wanda Maximoff, Scarlet Witch, doing the multiverse. It's just crazy how much I always think is that, like, in the theater, I'm like, okay, this is the end of this storyline, and then it just keeps getting crazier. They keep adding to it. It's awesome. It's like it's never ending. There's always something else. In DC, I think they're definitely kind of more competitive with Marvel these days. I hope no one hates me when I say that, but because more people seem to like Marvel than DC. I like DC because they're a little bit darker, particularly. They recently put out a show called Peacemaker, and if you have not seen it, you need to run to your TV and watch it. It's John Cena, and it is hilarious. Hands down, I like it better than the Marvel TV shows, better than WandaVision, better than Loki, and I'm a huge Loki fan. I have a Loki tattoo, but Peacemaker was an awesome show, but I think I liked it because it was more adult. It had, they were definitely more risque than Marvel has been, a lot darker. I kind of like how DC's a lot darker, so I definitely think they're coming up, to be comparative with Marvel. I think people will always probably prefer Marvel just because they have more superheroes that are, I don't know, long-standing, for lack of a better term. Captain America, Iron Man, of course, Black Widow, all those big names.
Yeah, and I feel like when it comes down to the DCEU, it's like they're finally seeing that if they connect the dots, that people will start to flock to them, and if they pick the right directors and write it correctly, not to say they were bad before, but it makes them definitely stand back out. And you're right with Peacemaker. They took a relatively unknown character,
right,
from the Suicide Squad and made it a series which you had to tune in to see what was going to happen next.
Yeah, exactly. And now they have they kind of touched on his background a little bit in the show, and now they have a comic series coming out about it too. So I think the first one's been released. I think I just haven't gotten around to reading it actually yet. So, but like I didn't know who Vigilante was, and I loved his character in that show. So at Comic Con, I think I bought like a whole huge set of Vigilante comics just so I can get his story. I hope they make a spin off just about him because I loved his character.
Yeah, yeah, and to see them together and the way they bantered back and forth. I mean, it's not
Hilarious, yeah.
something. Yeah, it's not something you normally would see in a Marvel production of any sort.
Right, yeah. And I think it's because they kind of can take. I mean, Marvel has Deadpool, don't get me wrong, and that's definitely like he it's more adult themed. Deadpool is, but like I feel like most of the Marvel ones are geared towards the older comic book crowd that has been into comics for a long time. Where Marvel's kind of more family friendly, in my opinion, which is fine because I've got kids. My son is a huge Hulk and Spider Man fan. Like he watches it literally every day. But when you want to kind of I can see where somebody who's been into comics for a long time wants to kind of reconnect with that. I definitely think DC kind of plays more to the adult crowd than Marvel.
Yeah, and I think what it comes down to with Marvel is they've learned that if they're able to connect the dots in some way, they can create this huge universe that
Mm-hmm.
pretty much is almost never ending. Especially, if you go way back into the '60s and see all the villains they've had, all the characters that they've had, and they're very strategic
Mm-hmm.
about how they do it, which is what I think partially what makes them successful.
Right. Right.
And I definitely
Yeah.
want to
I
see
keep
more
hoping.
from.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say I like to see more from the DC universe, because there's so
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
characters out there for them, and I haven't seen the Batman movie, but I've been told I need to go see it.
I have also not seen it, unfortunately. I just keep trying to stay away from spoilers and whatever. I have heard it's awesome. So if I don't see it in theaters, I think they said there is like a release date on HBO Max mid April. So I will be watching it from home if that is the case.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen that they're trying to greenlight a Penguin spinoff for
I
HBO.
did. Yeah, I did hear that. And as far as villains go, the Penguin is one of my favorites. Like even back when they had what was Danny DeVito and Michael Keaton Batman movies, like that's some of my favorites. So I hope they do that because I feel like that could be really cool.
So, just out of curiosity, who do you think the best Batman was?
Uh, I think I gotta go old school. I just think because I grew up on like the Michael Keaton Batman movies were always on TV at my house. Those were like my original Batman DVDs, and I know it's not like that old, right? But um, that's kind of what I had. My first experience with Batman was Michael Keaton, so I kind of just relate that to him for some reason. So I've always just had a thing for Michael Keaton's Batman.
And I can't agree more. I mean, that was my first introduction to Batman was Michael Keaton, and I think
Hmm.
that they've evolved it to a point where you get down to um, who was it? It was Val Kilmer and George Clooney. I think those were
Hmm.
they were so. I think those
Hmm.
could have been done
Hmm.
better, but I think that the way that they portrayed the Dark Knight series was really good as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I think like the Dark Knight with Heath Ledger and or was he in that one? Was that the one with him in it? I get
Um,
the titles confused, I'll be honest.
yeah,
But
he was in the second one.
okay, yeah. So I feel like I don't even remember who was the Batman in that one because Heath Ledger had done such a good job as the Joker and it was so captivating. So it's almost like what Batman, who played Batman in that one?
Exactly. And then, you dive into, Ben Affleck doing Batman, and everybody said he was
Mm-hmm.
going to be bad. I don't think he was bad. I think he did a really
Yeah,
well
no.
job, and they kind of went back to the original roots of the not so just black suit. It was more of a gray, and then they went further with Robert Pattinson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm interested to see how Robert Pattinson plays Batman because I still kind of think of him as glittery vampire guy from
Yeah,
Twilight. So I don't know, but apparently he does pretty good. So
yeah, and
we will
and the
see.
cast that they had in that, of course, it's something that I need to see. But just from the previews, you see, Catwoman, Penguin's in it, and just from
Mm-hmm.
the prosthetics, the way that they did that, it kind of was like, Colin Farrell did a did a wonderful job, and I didn't know it was him.
I just like I did not realize it was him until you just said that. That's
Yeah,
funny.
and
Yeah, wow. It's amazing what makeup and special effects can do.
yeah, I watched an interview with him, and he said that out of all the things that he's done, because he thought being in that much prosthetic would be kind of hindering. He
Mm-hmm.
felt like it was more freeing because I would imagine when people don't recognize who you are, you have more freedom to not be you
Mm-hmm.
in a
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't wait to see it. And it's one of those things where, again, there's so many different things they can do with that. And Christopher Nolan, with the Dark Knight Rises, and I can't remember the name of the third one. I think he did well,
Mm-hmm.
and I can't wait to see how Robert Pattinson did. And I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
there's room for him to grow in that,
Sure.
if they want to continue. So, with in regards to keeping with the DC version of everything, another loaded question: Who do you think the best Superman was?
I really like Henry Cavill. Like I was gonna say when you mentioned Ben Affleck being Batman, I really liked Henry Cavill and Ben Affleck together in Batman versus Superman. Like that was I thought that a lot of people said that movie sucked, and I thought it was pretty good. Maybe I'm just like a little biased towards DC because I want them to be good. I don't know, but I don't know. I really like Henry Cavill, but again, I'm of the younger generation, so I'm sure people that grew up with a different Superman would probably fight me on that one or debate me,
Well,
I guess I should say, on that.
I couldn't agree more. I think that the past Superman characters, like Christopher Reeves.
Right.
Um, I can't remember the name of the gentleman who came after, who looked like him, sounded like him, but I think that he did a
Trying
better
to like
job.
Dean Cain. I think Dean Cain played him for a little
Um,
bit.
they did
Lois and
another
Clark or
movie,
something.
and I want to say his name was Brandon Roush, but
Oh
I
yeah,
could be
Brandon
wrong.
Roth. Mm-hmm. No,
Yeah, that's
that's
it.
somebody who definitely played Superman at some point. Superman Returns? I'm not 100%
Yeah,
sure.
that was it. Yeah, and when they did I think it was when they started the series, I think it was Legends of Tomorrow. He was in that for a little while, and
Mm-hmm.
of course he's played a couple of different characters, and then they at some point they brought his Superman back. But I couldn't agree with you more when it comes down to Henry Cavill. I think he
Mm-hmm.
did it well.
Yeah, yeah, he does. He kind of gives that old Christopher Reeve vibe almost. I know they don't look the same, but that like Superman traditional comic look, I feel like he fits that.
Yeah, and with the modern day uh, Superman character, I think it's called Superman and Lois is the newest series that CW has. Have you seen
Okay.
that?
I haven't. I know Tyler Hoechlin. I think that's how you say his name. He plays Superman and Supergirl, but I haven't seen. Um, no, I haven't seen that show.
And I think it's the same person that plays him. And
Oh,
that
okay.
series started last year. They're on the second season now.
Okay.
Yeah, you definitely got to check it out. It's on the CW app. So my wife and I started watching that, and it goes back to the comic book roots where he had kids, and one of them ended up being Superboy. So they kind of touch on that a little bit throughout the
Okay.
series.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check
Um,
that out.
they touched a few episodes of John Henry Irons, but they did it in a way where he came from a different universe, almost kind of like what Marvel's done with the multiverse.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you definitely got to check that out. It's one of those that it locks you in, and you got to see the next one.
Really? Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna put that on my list of ones to watch. I honestly, aside from, I know they have a lot of CW does a lot with like the superhero DC people, like Superman and things like that. But outside of Peacemaker, I haven't seen a lot of the DC shows.
There's a few that I've seen that I've tried to start watching that it just makes you kind of scratch your head a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
out of all the ones that are out there, because you've got the Flash, which that's a good show.
Yeah, that does look good. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You've
Like I
got
never got into Smallville. I think that was like loose. That was supposed to be based on the superheroes, right? I never watched
yeah.
that.
I never got into that. They've got quite a few. My wife and I started watching Stargirl as well, and that was pretty good.
Okay.
So
Yep.
there's a
Never seen
few
that
out
one.
there that'll hook you in, and that one's on HBO also.
Oh, okay. I'm apparently way
But
behind on the TV shows.
you know, so when you're looking at the MCU series, not the movies, but like the Disney Plus
Mm-hmm.
shows that they had.
Mm-hmm.
Out of all the ones they've come out with thus far, of course, we're going to have Moon Knight coming out next week, which
Mm-hmm.
is going to be one of the darker ones that they've done with the side of Deadpool, of course.
Right. Right.
Out of all of them, I think Falcon and the Winter Soldier was more realistic.
Uh-huh.
Almost
Yeah.
like when you watched it, you could see that happening in the real world.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And that's probably why that was probably okay. To be fair, I have not seen Hawkeye yet, but the Captain America, Falcon, I just couldn't get into it. I don't know why. Just not my favorite.
And they were relative. I won't say unknown, but they weren't part of the popular superheroes that they've had.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and my business partner and I were talking the other day about the Superman or not Superman, Spider Man. And who
Hmm.
was the best Spider Man? And I think, just me personally, I think they all were great in their own way.
Sure.
But I think that the Tom Holland version of Spider Man, especially the one that just came out, just kind of blew everything out of the water.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I want to say Tobey Maguire because again, that was like my first experience with Spider-Man, but I definitely think Tom Holland is awesome as Spider-Man. He does such a great job. And he's more like that age. Like I feel like he's probably older than a teenager in real life, but he just looks like, young and very clearly not a 30-year-old man trying to play a 16-year-old.
right. And Tobey Maguire was my very first introduction, other than the animated series back in the '90s.
Hmm. Right.
Um, but I feel like his character was good, but I think they skipped on a few things. And for me, I think that even though Tom Holland's is the most superior, I believe, and just because of the way they've told it, the fact that Marvel's behind it makes it what it is, and they got it. They got somebody like you said who actually looks the age, even though he's definitely not. But I think
Right.
that
Right.
when you look at the comics, some of them, I haven't seen a whole bunch, but I feel like that Andrew Garfield's character, as far as physically, he kind of looked like him. I mean, he had he looked very gangly, and
Hmm.
he was more of the geek that you would see like in the animated series and whatnot. But
Yeah.
they were all
Yeah.
great retrospectively in their own
Oh
right.
yeah. And spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't seen the new Spider-Man, but having all of them in the same movie was like epic. And people actually kept that a secret for a really long time. I feel like we can talk about it now because I think it's out on DVD. So if you haven't seen it by now or know what the big twist is, like, sorry. But yeah, I thought that was so cool that they kind of brought that back and that it seems like they're gonna involve like the Venom piece and stuff like they've done in the comics. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, but they're actually in the process of greenlighting the Amazing Spider-Man 3, which they were supposed to have done, but they didn't do.
Mm.
So
No, I hadn't
that's
heard
really
that either.
cool.
That would be cool.
There's, yeah, yeah. Even if it's just to give a ending to his series, but
Yeah,
there's,
yeah,
with the MCU, you never know who's going to show up. I mean, I know
exactly.
there's rumors that it's all over the place, but there's rumors that the X-Men are going to show up in Doctor Strange. There's rumors that Deadpool could show up.
Uh huh.
Even Tobey Maguire's
Yeah,
Spider-Man could show up.
right. Yeah,
And
I mean, yeah, that's one thing we love about, like you said, about the MCU. It's like, you just never know. They could do whatever, and you're like, this is awesome.
they have a fantastic formula to hook you, keep you guessing for months, like they did with
Hmm.
No Way Home. Nobody knew what
Yeah,
was going on until it hit. I mean, it was you were in the movie theater before you realized everything everybody was speculating was true.
right, right.
And I don't even think
Yeah,
we got the first trailer for up until probably what 3, maybe 4 weeks before it actually came out in the theater.
yeah. I think, yeah, wasn't it? Why do I feel like it was? What did they show at Super Bowl? Why am I thinking that was Spider Man? But maybe that was something else.
I think that was Doctor Strange. I
Maybe
might
that's
be
what it
wrong.
was. I don't remember. I remember a big commercial at Super Bowl from MCU, but I can't remember which film it was for. But yeah, I think they do it. You're right. They kind of just have that way of keeping you hooked and also keeping you hanging at the same time. Like when you saw Infinity War. Is it go Infinity War Endgame? I think that's right. Where
Yeah.
they where everyone just kind of turns to dust and you're like I was literally sitting in the theater, and again this is kind of early on in my introduction to comic world and superhero movies, and I looked at myself and I was like, "Are you kidding? Why would you bring me to this movie? This is a terrible ending. Like, what? Everyone's just gone. Like, what? He snapped and everyone's gone? No, no, no. This can't be the end. This can't be the end." And then they're like, "We'll see what happens in the next movie, in the next year or two, or however long it took for them to put out Endgame." But yeah, just and it's like you think about it for until that next movie comes out, and you're like, I wonder what's gonna happen. All those awesome characters cannot just be dust now.
Yeah, and I can't remember if it was Infinity War or Endgame. It might have been both. They had the ending credits, and then they had that small teaser. They didn't
Hmm. Yeah,
actually
that's
have
like
that.
That's like every Marvel movie. Did they
Yeah,
not have one at Infinity War? I thought they
I,
did.
I, I want to say it was Endgame, but I could be wrong. You
I
know,
thought they always had
everybody.
one. Feel like we always
Yeah,
sit
I mean,
around you can always tell who the real Marvel fans are because they're the ones that are sitting through the credits.
exactly. Yeah, if you go back and you watch it, and you watch it all the way to the ending credit, to the end of it, there isn't one. So they leave you
Hmm.
guessing of what is actually going to happen.
Yeah, maybe. And again, that's just one of their things. You're like, what? What? There's no end credit scene. What the heck? Yeah.
Yeah, and then it hooks you in. You want to know what's going to happen next, and then you're looking everywhere you can.
Yeah, go to the internet. And I think I've seen a lot of stuff on the internet recently since the new Batman came out that I think DC is starting to do that too. And there's apparently a good uh, end credit scene at the end of Batman too.
Yeah. Um. So in the MCU, like for me, my first introduction was Iron Man, very first one,
Hmm.
and you said yours was Infinity War, was it?
I think I saw an Avengers randomly in a theater once. I think it was like one of the Avengers, Age of Ultron, maybe.
Okay.
I can't remember exactly. I was in college, I think. So it's been a
How
minute.
many how many of them have you seen? Because I think by now, not including the series, they're probably what 26, 27, maybe even 28 in now.
Maybe. And I think at this point I've seen all of them, but there's just so many that some of them tend to blur. My spouse has seen them over and over and over again, so if I have a question, like I'll just ask, like, what is this? But I think we have Google to say, how do we watch all the Marvel movies in order? And that everyone has their own, it's either chronological or release date or what have you, but I think up until this point, because we even added in the old when the other guy Edward Norton played Hulk, we added that one in, even though I don't think he was in that one movie, and I think that was it. But I think I've seen most of it, minus a lot of the X Men. For some reason, the X Men movies, too much is happening, and they have like the multiple storylines kind of going through their movies at once, and I get confused. I've seen a couple of them, but I don't know that I could tell you what's going on in them essentially.
Right. And you're right when it comes down to the X Men, they're all over the place. Now I will say the
Mm-hmm.
best X Men character, and of course he was the longest, was Wolverine. And
Sure.
for me, the best movie that they've come out with for Wolverine was Logan.
I did enjoy Logan. I will say that. I did enjoy that one. That was one that kind of seemed like it wasn't going back and forth or something. It was very, here's the story, here's what happens, here's how it ends. It was very linear, I guess, for lack of a better. I thought Dark Phoenix was cool. Just kind of the Jean Grey story, but um, they just go back and forth. So it's like this version of X-Men, then there's the young X-Men, and there's, I don't know, I just get so confused.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed X Men Days of Future Past and the younger version of the characters and showing
Mm-hmm.
how they evolved to where they were. I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of ashamed to say I haven't seen the Dark Phoenix yet. I have it, but
Oh
I
yeah.
haven't seen it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I kind of have a, like, I don't know, I like that character, that X-Men character. Um, I don't know. And I think of the X-Men movies I've watched, I think I liked First Class. I can't keep them all straight or tell you what universe which people are in. I know the characters, like, when they're on the TV, but I think that was my favorite, actually X-Men movie was First Class.
Yeah, and I love that too, just because it shows how they got together. And at one point, they were all on the same team, going for the
Mm-hmm.
same
Mm-hmm.
goal.
Right.
And it showed that there was somebody else like Magneto way before he was even Magneto.
Mm-hmm. It's such a good cast too. Like, if I could keep the story straight, I'm sure I would love it because the casting is just so good. James McAvoy, J Law, Jennifer Lawrence. You know, I think isn't Zoe Kravitz is a character. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think she
January
played.
Jones,
Yeah, yeah, and I think Zoe Kravitz actually played Firefly, maybe.
maybe.
And
I
it's been a
can't keep
while
them
since I've
straight.
seen them, so
Yeah, same.
and it's just
Mm-hmm.
there's so many characters out there that they've come out with. Like I never really heard of like Ant-Man, for instance, until they announced Paul Rudd was going to be Ant-Man, and of course they
Mm-hmm.
couldn't have picked a better person to play him.
Right, right. Yeah. Agree. They're great with the casting. I love Paul Rudd as Ant-Man. I think oh my gosh, why am I blanking on his name? Uh, Hemsworth, Chris Hemsworth, not Liam, right?
Yeah,
As Thor. Yeah, I think he's great as Thor. Um, just like especially like as the Thor movies go on, I think they get funnier. And it's just like he's perfect at those lines, and I really liked how he worked with the Loki character and things like that, and how they kind of would go back and forth with each other. I like that. So there's probably, I think they announced Thor Love and Thunder is coming out, where the Valkyrie, I think, is going to become Queen of Asgard, of Asgard.
yeah. And then you got Jane Foster, who's taken up the mantle of Thor.
That's right. And so she's coming back from when she was in the early movies. So
Hmm.
that'll be Natalie Portman's coming back. So that'll be, I think that's what I heard.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard too. They did a press junket. I want to say it was last year where they were announcing what Phase 5 was going to be, and she was there for it.
Okay.
Uh, and of course, they had her holding Milner, so that kind
Right.
of
That's
gave it
right. There's
away.
a good picture. Yeah. There's like a viral picture of her holding that, I think. You're right.
And something I learned probably, oh gosh, maybe a couple weeks back is I didn't know that Tom Hiddleston actually auditioned to be Thor.
Really? Yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
know that either. He plays such a good Loki, though.
he does. Yeah, and there's some interview, and I want to say it's on Disney Plus somewhere, where he actually went in and dyed his hair blonde. Apparently, he went and worked out for several months to try to get the build right, and they ended up, of
I can't
course.
even imagine.
Yeah, I mean, and you look back on just like Robert Downey Jr. He wasn't the first choice for that. It was Tom Cruise, if you can believe that.
Mm-hmm. Uh, I wouldn't be surprised, but they obviously made the right decision in the end. I mean, like I said, I guess I get stuck on these actors playing these certain roles, and it's like I can't imagine anybody else being Tony Stark or Loki. Like I'm trying to
Yeah,
think of what Tom Hiddleston would even look like with blonde hair and buff. Like it's weird.
yeah,
It's
and
weird. Get rid of it.
the footage is actually out there, so you can find it on YouTube and stuff.
I'm gonna have to look it up because that
It's
is
crazy.
funny. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look
And
that one up.
and then of course the whole Tom Cruise thing. There's rumors that he's making a cameo as I think it's Superior Iron Man in Multiverse of Madness.
Oh, okay. Well,
So
that will be
that
interesting.
it would be different. Yeah, like you couldn't expect somebody else playing that character, and I think that's
Yeah.
like that for a lot of iconic movies, not just superhero stuff. You see that
Mhm.
one
Mhm.
person, and then you find out, well, somebody else was supposed to play him, and you go, nah, it would have never
Mhm.
worked.
Right. Right. Yeah.
you know. And I think they
Yeah.
touched on that with the What If series, which I thought all the episodes were really good on that, with the exception I didn't really get into the zombie episode.
Yeah. Yeah. And I haven't seen all of those either. Of course, I've seen the Agent Carter one, and I think that's one of the more popular ones. And I think
Yeah,
I think they made that one a comic, or it had been a comic, and then they made the TV show off of that. I think I've seen it, but yeah, I think that's one of the more common ones. That would be cool, if they kind of did a spin on that, just to see, what if Agent Carter had been Captain America, essentially. I think they end up calling her
yeah,
something
and
else in the show, but
it's funny that you say that. There's a guy that I watch on YouTube. His YouTube channel is called Everything Always, and all he does is Marvel and DC stuff, nothing else.
hmm
And there's a few episodes on there where he breaks down part of the trailer for Multiverse of Madness, where he walks into the council and you can't see who it is, but you can see the outlines of who they are. And there's rumors that one of those people is actually, I think they call her Captain Britain, maybe,
yeah,
but
yeah, I think
It's
that sounds
Agent
right.
Carter.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
they touched that
Crazy.
Patrick Stewart's coming back to reprise his role as
Oh
Professor X
yeah,
because you can hear his
Professor
voice.
X. Yeah.
It's crazy. So it's wild that you have all these iconic people playing these iconic characters and they intertwine and they
hmm
it's crazy how well they do it.
It's like they'll never, like I said, it's like they'll never run out of things to do. It's always going to be something new to do, it feels like.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. I think the possibilities of course are endless. There's been
Yep.
talks of doing the Young Avengers, and of course, they've got the Armor Wars coming out. There's just so
hmm
much. She Hulk. I've been waiting on that for forever.
Yeah. That should be good. Yeah, yeah. I'm excited for that one. The covers for the like the comics on that have been awesome. So I can't wait to see what they do with that one.
Yeah, and just from the little tidbits that they've thrown out there, the fact that she's still human but yet has all the powers of the Hulk is nuts. I mean, I just think that'll end up being one of the better series. But I'm really looking forward to Moon Knight just because it's going to be super dark, and they did that of course on purpose because I want to say he was really super dark in the comics.
Yeah, I've not read it, but it's certainly just from what people have said and just like looking at their comics. Um, yeah, it definitely looks like it. You're right. So I didn't realize that Tatiana Maslany is playing She-Hulk. Is that right?
I want to say that's right. Yeah,
I love her. I'm
yeah,
definitely gonna watch that now. Not that I
and then
wasn't before, but
right, yeah, and it comes out on the 30th, so I want to say that's next
oh, that's like
Wednesday.
next Friday. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow, that's soon. That's soon. Okay.
Yeah, and then of
And I
course,
think when
not
is
not
Moon
just
Knight's
with
coming out soon too, right? Like it should be super soon.
yeah, yeah. Well, the She-Hulk is coming after Moon Knight. Moon Knight starts next week. They
Okay,
haven't
okay.
really
So
announced She-Hulk yet, but bringing back some of the newer characters. Of course, you've got Miss Marvel, which she's getting her own spin-off series, but she's
yeah.
she's in Multiverse of Madness,
Yeah. Yeah, I think her show's coming out in June, if
and
I'm
it's
not mistaken.
uh, I think so. I think it got pushed again. Yeah.
hmm Yeah, that'll be
Um,
interesting too. And she's a kid
you
too,
know,
I think, right? Isn't she like supposed to
y-
be like a younger? I see her a lot in the my son watches the Spidey and his friends. I think she's in that one with
y-
Spider-Man.
yeah, and it's really weird that if you've ever played the Avengers game that they came out with a couple years ago, she's in that.
Okay, I'm
Um,
not
that's
playing
where
it.
they kind of introduced her to the mass, so to speak.
Okay.
Um, but she is modeled after Captain Marvel.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And in the game, she absorbed other people's powers. If you were stretchier or fire, whatever the case was. And I think in Multiverse of Madness, they've just given her the photon blasters out of her hands, which is
Okay.
still pretty cool because that's iconic Captain Marvel.
Sure. Yeah.
But I know they have a huge lineup coming, and I can't wait to see what happens. I mean, I'm
Right.
sure there's going to be some out there that a lot of people don't like, but at the end of the
Yeah.
day, the way they've done it, they want you to go, I still need to see that. I still need to watch it all the way through.
I think you do that with anything, with all of the Marvel, only because everyone talks about it, whether they liked it or not. It's being talked about. Like I need to watch Hawkeye. I don't like Hawkeye's not one of my favorite characters, but I need to watch it so I can kind of be caught up on. I'm sure they'll put it in a movie, and I'll be like, "What is that?" And someone will be like, "Oh, didn't you watch Hawkeye? They mentioned that in that show," and I'll be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
missed it."
Well, you definitely need to
So,
watch that just because it touches on the Ronin character to a degree,
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
which
And the
in
the female
go ahead.
Hawkeye too, right? What's their?
Yeah,
Is that? Yeah. What is her
yeah,
name?
because
Like I said, I haven't seen it.
Kate Bishop.
That's right, Kate Bishop. Yep, yep.
Yeah, because it touches more on the relationship that he had with his family after the events of Endgame, and it also gives more light onto what he actually did as Ronin, where you only saw maybe a 10-minute, not even a 10-minute snippet of him as Ronin,
Mm-hmm.
and then you learn about what he actually went through. And I don't want to give away a whole lot, but it's good. It starts off kind of slow,
Right,
but once it picks up, it's like most of the movies. Once it picks up, it's full steam ahead
it's
all the way through to the
right
end.
until the end. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just need to commit. I feel like I watch so many shows, and then it's like that one kind of. If someone in my house has already watched it, kind of falls to the wayside, if you will.
Yeah,
I
there's just so much out there. It's hard to keep up with it.
don't know. It really is. It really is. And
Well,
like reading the comics, they come out that fast too. So um,
yeah, and that's
it's
what I've
like
heard.
I have stacks of books. I'm like, oh, I want to read this series. Like I said, I bought a huge vigilante series. Like maybe it's got to be at least 40 books, and I'm like, I want to read it, but then something else will come out, and I want to read that. So it's just so much, but it's fun. I like it. I can do it with my family. You know, it's just fun.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of those things that if you've picked up one series and you pick up another, it locks you in.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That's exactly right. Here I am 5 years later talking to you about it on a podcast. If you would have told me this is where I would have been, if you told me this 5 years ago, I probably would have been like, excuse me? What superheroes?
Exactly. Hey, I appreciate you taking time out to come talk to me and talk about something that not only it seems like you're passionate about, but it's one of those things that I'm passionate about as well. And it's great to meet somebody else who's like minded in what makes us feel good as people.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me. And I hope, you know, this kind of, a lot of people think that comics are just for geeky nerds, but there are women out there reading comics too, and we like it too. So power to the women
That's right. That's right.
that are reading
Well,
the comic book. So, but thank you so much for talking with me and kind of giving me my first podcast experience.
absolutely. I hope it was a good experience. I hope we could do it again soon.
Absolutely. Yeah, anytime. I'll talk nerd comics anytime. Movies about superheroes anytime.
Yeah, we'll definitely might have to set up a follow up after Moon Knight ends to see what you think.
Yeah, that would be cool. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna watch that one because I know people are so hyped about it. So that's definitely on my list.
Excellent. Well, I definitely look forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you so much again. I really appreciate taking the time to talk to me.
Absolutely. I hope you have a great night.
You too.
All right.